When you trust Ferguson Roof Systems to replace your roof, we go the extra mile to protect your home and property. On every job, we deploy durable netting to protect your home's exterior and landscaping. It's just one more reason why you should call Ferguson Roof Systems today.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist here and Tuttle with you on a Friday night. We're going to talk about the weekend weather for you and bring you up to speed as we head into the time period of our mini early preview of severe weather. That's going to come in here on Sunday. So thanks for joining me. Please like and share this video. Tell your friends and family about AT's weather. That way they don't get to miss out on all the good stuff that does happen out there across the land of Oklahoma and surrounding states. All right, looks like you guys are checking in from all over the place. I see you out there in Cushing there. Billy, say hello to my cousin Don, would you? Let's see, Ron is in the house. He's wondering if there's going to be a snow-nator coming his way. No snow in this system. We did have a little touch and go of some light precipitation out there, though, today, mainly across the southern parts of Oklahoma, where you had a little bit of that touch of freezing drizzle, light freezing rain, and that kind of still continues, and we'll show you that here in a minute. But temperatures starting to moderate just a little bit across the region. So I see Craig's in the house watch. I'm going to see you at the Penn Square Mall here coming up pretty soon. You guys have probably visited me in the past of the Severe Weather Expo at Penn Square Mall. It was a hot topic for about, 3-4 years, and then COVID hit. And then that thing kind of disappeared for a couple of years. Well, COVID is over. Everybody's moved back to about as normal as we can be. So as a result, LaDonna, that's not good. Well, you send that stars button. I will be back out there along with the other TV news stations and the National Weather Service and some other partners out there for the first weekend of March. So get ready. It's coming up here soon, and I'll give you some more information about that as we get a little bit closer to the event. So hope you guys can come out there and see me. It'll be on a Saturday from I think it's 12 to 3 o'clock, something like that. So looking forward. That's always been neat because I get to meet a lot of you out there and, shake some hands, kiss some babies, run for office, say elect me. I'll give you everything you want. Free money. But no, we'll talk about the weather and have some fun out there. All right, let me see. Anything else I want to talk about? Oh, real quick before I get started with the weather forecast, as usual, if you guys are late to the party on Facebook because Facebook's not playing nice, you can always click on this link and I will send you a direct notification through your Facebook Live Messenger. That way you won't miss a broadcast. So there you go. There's that. All right. Let's see. By the way, you guys on YouTube, thanks for checking in as usual. I see Jim in the house and several others of you on Rumble. Also, appreciate you guys coming in tonight. And even if you're watching the replay late tonight or even early tomorrow morning, again, thanks you guys for watching your sport. All right, outside currently, it's cloudy. It's a little drizzly out there, if you haven't noticed. Temperatures here in my backyard right around 30 degrees. So we are still on the chilly side. And Robert, I see you. I got your vote, eh? So yeah, we're there. I don't know why the Facebook stars aren't working tonight, so maybe a couple of you guys can test it and see if you see one, go by. They weren't working earlier today, so maybe Facebook is having a problem. So I don't know how to fix that on my end, that's for sure. Let's see, the radar. Let's take a look at that one as well. Now the heavy stuff, and I mean, I'm stressing the word heavy pretty silly because it's really, really light sprinkles, but it's down here across southern Oklahoma, around Comanche, Walters, Duncan, Velma, Wynnewood. So some spotty little showers are going to continue to bubble up down here and make their way to the north and east. We've had a little patch of some drizzle, especially in the south end of Oklahoma City, down toward Purcell, Wayne, Norman, east from there at times today. It's been very, very light. I don't think it causes any problems. But when you have temperatures in the 20s, you can be very careful when you start to get some light precipitation. So that'll be the trend for tonight, is temperatures will still hover close to the freezing point out there for many areas of the state. Matter of fact, we can show you the current freezing line here in yellow across Oklahoma. And that is extending just around the Bartlesville area, passes west of Tulsa, right around the Stillwater, and then down into, let's say, right around Norman, really, and then back down here to east of Lawton. So everywhere along this yellow line, you're going to be at the freezing point here for tonight, and then points north and west. So if you do get any light precipitation at all and you're out traveling, Got to watch out for bridges and overpasses. They might get just a little bit slippery at times. The temperatures this morning were quite cold. They're in the Panhandle, single digits once again. We were into the 20s this morning in central Oklahoma, 30s and 40s down across southeast. And this afternoon, it wasn't much of a rebound, staying mainly 20s and 30s out there across central Oklahoma, 40s out across the east. Even the Panhandle, though, did get a nice little respite, and they did warm up. Now, what you'll notice here is this little cool spot here. This is a ridge axis of a high-pressure center that kind of moved in for us. And this will be the key factor on how things will evolve on Sunday when it comes to severe weather. If we can completely eliminate this ridging at the surface of this colder air, more stable air, then it's going to get pretty rocking and rolling across Oklahoma. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center does have this is going to turn into a moderate risk at this point of severe storms here across southwestern, western, and central Oklahoma for late Sunday afternoon through about the midnight hour Sunday evening. Close-up view from the National Weather Service also highlights that with the primary hazard of damaging winds. Hail and tornadoes also possible. Does include Oklahoma City, Clinton, Altus, Weatherford, Wichita Falls, Lawton. This does move to the east overnight, but the severity lessens. So by the time it gets into eastern Oklahoma, it is downgraded to a slight risk for most of this area. Now, question is all that really going to be? Well, I'm glad you're here. We're about to find out. We're looking at the latest data that just came in hot off the presses. By the way, the analogs, which in other words, you take this similar storm system in the past, and you put it into a nice little basket and you spit out what happens usually, and 9 times out of 10, the probabilities usually indicate nice round of severe weather in the Panhandle in the far western Oklahoma. Keep this in mind. This is one of the key elements we're going to come back to after we look at some of the data. On the wind, it does have, there's usually a little bit of wind with this, little bullseye here across the eastern Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma. As far as the hail goes, it does like the eastern Texas Panhandle still with the far western counties of Oklahoma. And what about a tornado? It does say, historically, in this type of environment, it does favor this little sweet spot up here in the same region for, again, Sunday, late afternoon and early evening. But when you look at some of the numbers of reports, let's just say, if you look at for guidance, there's really not a whole lot. This is about a 20 to 30% chance of severe weather reports. Now you're saying, why is this? Well, because the models are struggling with this little spot right here. Where it has no data, is because it still thinks there's a potential it's going to be quite cold at the surface. It's going to help to eliminate some severe weather. We're going to take a look at that, though. Here's a look at the jet stream pattern, the upper levels of the storm system. You watch the storm system out to the west. You see all that big spiraling motion bringing all that snow for California. Isn't that crazy? That's going to make its way across the Four Corners area here and then open up into Sunday afternoon and then right into the 6 o'clock hour. That axis of it, let's draw the axis for you on the map. Let's use blue. So we kind of have the low coming in like this, and the axis kind of kicks out negative tilted. So I'm going to tell you, historically, when you see a pattern like this, so the upper low is right in this position, you get this nice split flow that comes in right here. This spells trouble. I will tell you, this is a scary look. This is a tornado outbreak look in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That does not necessarily transfer to the lower levels of the atmosphere, which is far more important with the devil in the details. So we're going to get to that here in just 2 shakes. But needless to say, the setup is there for a significant weather event. Now that will be into Sunday evening, rolling through, and then there's Monday morning. By the time it hits to that point, it's already into Missouri. So it's a fast mover across the area. So now let's zoom on in. Actually, before we zoom in, I'll also show you another layer of the atmosphere. This is the upper region of the jet stream at 300 millibar level. And the point I want to bring home here is typically it's a nice little split like this. So you evacuate the air when you kind of have this little V notch appearance. So right now, in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, 500 millibars to 300, it is an ideal setup for severe weather. It's nasty looking. I will again admit to that. When we go to the speed max, in other words, how much wind will kick in to help really get those storms going at 500 millibars, let's take a look at this little number here. As we go into the, let's say, 6 o'clock hour, see this little batch of yellow? I mean, this is off the chart wind field, just so you know. Looks like the number here is ranging about 110 to 120 miles per hour. That's a lot of wind. So what this is, though, it's the trajectory is coming in across the Panhandle and then zipping right up here into central Oklahoma for the evening hours. There's 6 o'clock and there's 9 o'clock. So it's still, the biggest punch is still across the Panhandle, but we start in that trajectory of that track. So it's not bad. Now, so here's the deal. If we were in April or May, it would be Katie bar the doors everybody hunker down. It's going to be a nasty mess. We, however, are in the latter part of February. Therefore, we have more intricacies to work around that aren't there in the heat or the middle of our spring weather season. All right, so just setting up the stage. This is what got everybody talking. All right, the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and understandably so. Now, if we look at the 700 millibar level down to the lower mid levels, this is the direct brutal lift in the atmosphere. So, for example, dry line circulation, when the dry line gets fired up, we have a lot of colors showing up right here on the map. So, in other words, this is a ton of lift. In other words, this will get storms going if you had a cap or no cap in this area. Now, that's again at 6 o'clock, and you see where the line is running through pretty much Amarillo, running north and south. The line is not here in western Oklahoma. That's a big difference maker, and that's going to be important in the forecast. It's going to make a big difference when you get storms that develop out here versus out here when it comes to central Oklahoma as you go through time. Now, as we head into the 9 p.m. slot, that lift quickly moves to the east, right here across west central Oklahoma. So that means these will be the line of the nasty storms that do move through. So they'll be coming into Oklahoma City prior to 9 o'clock, it looks like at this point in time, but just barely. And then by midnight, pressing through Tulsa and points eastward based off the lift from the storm system. All right, so we know we have plenty of lift. We know we have some speed shear. We've got nice wind flow aloft. Now what's going to happen at the surface? And this is where things get really interesting. Okay, so look at the dew point value. It's a measure of moisture in the atmosphere. So I've told you this before. If you want tornadoes, you really need dew point values. Now this is sometimes vary in different parts of the country, but here in Oklahoma, we like the low to mid 60s as a barometer for tornadoes. Are we going to see low to mid 60s? Let's take a look. Right now we're in the 20s. That's not going to do anything. All right, so let's go through time. Saturday, 40s return a little bit. Here we go. We're starting to moisten up the atmosphere. Here comes those deeper 60s across Texas in the blue. 6 o'clock. Where are they? This is the problem. Okay, so now I say it's a problem. You might like this. It just depends, tomato. But the problem is we're missing a key ingredient in the rest of what's happening in the atmosphere. So we have enough moisture convergence along the dry line right here, very thin layer of darker green you see here, with dew points otherwise right around the low 50s. Now, the panhandle, just so you know, can get away with dew point values in the 50s and still have some decent storms. We cannot in Oklahoma usually. It'd be an outlier freak event for that to happen. You even see some 40s still showing in here. So in other words, by 6 o'clock, when all this stuff's supposed to get going, we have very meager moisture to work with. What does meager moisture do? It means that the storms will struggle. It's like running your car. Let's just say you bought a car and it requires premium unleaded. You cannot put regular unleaded in it. It'll knock, it'll hiss, it'll miss, and all this stuff, right? Well, this is what the atmosphere does. It's calling for super premium jet fuel octane, and it's getting water gas, all right? And so the storms are going to struggle. What they will be able to do is they will be able to produce some hail, and they will be elevated. They'll have some pockets of wind with them. So because of this outcome, that is the situation. All right, now let's go on to the evening hours. So let's see, there's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Now what just happened here between 7, 8, 9? For one, that stuff surged east. All right, so there's the big push from this line of storm, this rock and rolling. Now, what you also notice was the dew point values came up to right around 60 degrees here in Oklahoma City. So we finally got the low level moisture to get here. Now, there's a problem with this. Now, again, depends on how you look at it. If you're a storm chaser versus your average Joe, you're going to look at things differently. But here's the issue. Because the moisture waited so long to get here, it's late to the party. Too little, too late. Because all those storms that have developed out here are all elevated in nature. They're not rooted in the boundary layer, which means they have a much harder time to produce damaging wind, damaging hail, and tornadoes. Now, that's a good thing, so we don't want any of that stuff. So there's a limitation to the atmosphere out here in western Oklahoma when things are at their best peak potential. All right, let's go to, let's see, it's 9 o'clock, so let's see, there's 10, 11, going through Tulsa. You're finally getting some 60s sneaking in your area. And there's midnight, and you can see how this is quickly moving out of the state for any decent moisture as those storms race on off. Okay, so temperature-wise, let's talk about that. Now we know about the dew points. So obviously, they're in the 20s and 30s out there tonight. And that'll be the case here for tomorrow in the morning, and then by afternoon, cold day again tomorrow. We're going to be into the 40s it looks like. We'll probably sneak in some upper 40s, kind of hit and miss around here. So it could be some of that here in central Oklahoma. Otherwise, another chilly day, cloudy a lot. You might see a few breaks of sun, but it's going to be pretty cloudy. As we head on into Sunday morning, we'll start you off once again to the 40s. By the time we get to the afternoon, you see how we're getting to the 50s for temperatures? Now, you know, if you live here around here long enough, you know as well as I do, you get readings into only the 50s or low 60s. That's not a big condition maker for severe weather, is it? No, it is not. So we head into 3, 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. All right, let me go back to 5. So now we'll do a caveat here. We're looking at the NAM model. The NAM model handles these shallow cold air masses that we've had the last couple of days better than the other models. However, it also has a cold bias. I mean, sometimes it hangs on to the cold air too long. So it can go either way on what it does. Now, right now, it's staying still on the cold side. I've been watching this for 3 days in a row. It has not budged. All right, so what happens is it's more stable. Now, it does peak in those temperatures up here into the mid-upper 60s, out into the panhandle, and it helps to get things going out in that region. But you can see in the body of Oklahoma, though, we're still pretty cool. As we head into the 6 and 7 o'clock hour, that means any storms out here in this region are going to run into this cooler air into the 50s. And then as we head into the 8 and 9 o'clock hour, we get our moisture surge in here, which shoves the temperature up with the dew point value. So we end up going around 62 degrees around 9 o'clock, just as these storms start to arrive. In other words, they finally have a little bit of decent moisture to work with by the time they come here. Now, can that briefly kick up the severe weather notch one or two notches? Yeah, it could. Depends on, again, how healthy the storms are when they approach. So let's take a look at another reason why everybody's freaking out about the Sunday event. The shear in the atmosphere. So we're going to look at a map here we call hodographs. Hodographs is just another way to visualize shear in the atmosphere. In other words, how everything rotates with height. In other words, do you have a southeast surface wind and then a southwest and then a westerly westerly mid-level wind? And does the speed increase? So when you plot all that knowledge onto a flat map with little squiggly lines, that's where you can tell the sweet spot is. So if we do look at this, you want, by the way, for a hodograph for like supercells / tornadoes, there's a couple you can look at. So you either want it to look like this, which is a big, almost like a big N that kind of comes like this, or you can also sometimes have a little N and do something like this. Either one, almost like an eyelash, an eyebrow. So either one of these looks will do it. The more it's like this, the more ridiculous amount of shear you have to work with. This is sufficient, but this is ridiculous. All right. So if you look out here at 5 o'clock, let's go to 6. Here's 6 o'clock. What do you see right here? If you're playing at home, that looks pretty ridiculous. All right. So that's some good shear, kind of peaks in this area as these storms are moving in from the, again, middle part of the Texas Panhandle to 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock in this area. So let's go into the 7 o'clock region right about here. Let's see how the shear looks. At this point in time, remember the storms are moving pretty fast. So they're already moving out of this region here of western Oklahoma. So they're moving into this area here. Now look at this huge hodograph here and here. And we're starting to get a little better here. So what we're watching is a narrow corridor like this out ahead of the line that is moving east with the line. Again, I'm telling you, if this was May or April, I'd be telling you things a lot differently in my tone. We're going to see if we get saved by this by the slightly cooler air that we have in place. If for whatever reason the NAM's wrong and we happen to get into the mid 70s for temperatures, for example, and our dew points are well into the low to mid 60s, could be a different outcome, significantly different. So we'll have to wait till Saturday to see how that plays out. But regardless, by 8 o'clock, we still have some decent hodographs here over central Oklahoma. Right here's a big curve to that one. So again, if we did have some better low-level situation with the temperature and profile of instability, then our outcome is going to be far grim than what it is right now. All right, but the good news is, it's the devil's in the details. You got to look at everything. Okay, so let's go into, so the shear is there, my point, on that map. All right, how does the storms outlook whenever you do fact? Oh, by the way, so we're going to have occasional, remember I kind of told you mostly cloudy tomorrow. We're still going to have occasional sprinkles and showers, especially across southern and southeastern and eastern Oklahoma. So this is tonight. We talked about that earlier to start the show. But that continues overnight along the Red River. And then here's the afternoon. You can see the bumble up of might even be some brief heavy showers that move through. There's even one here at 6 o'clock hour for southern parts of Oklahoma City. So kind of just hit and miss. Nothing severe or anything like that. All right. I guess I can't rule out a rogue lightning strike, but don't look for anything other than that. Okay, so let's go on into Sunday. All right, here's those storms firing up. 5 o'clock here around Amarillo, north and south. Here's 6 o'clock. Okay, so let's just take a peek of what the atmosphere looks like out here in the eastern Texas Panhandle at that time frame. Now, the models will differ a little bit, but what we're looking at here is a couple of things. A significant cap. See that right here? That is a monster cap. All right, here is your monster hodograph, so your monster shear profile, and that's because these winds right here go from a southeast to south to southwest to westerly direction as you go up in the atmosphere with height, and the speed increases from around 20 knots at the surface, and you're up to, good grief, 150 knots or more upstairs. But again, the kicker here is we have a monster cap. All right, the other thing we're missing out here, this particular model, it's 50 degrees over 49. That's too cold, too stable in the lowest levels. So you don't really have any surface-based instability. Therefore, you can't get any tornadoes out of that. Never happened. You can get some hail out of this. You may get some pockets of damaging wind, but that's on the limiting side because these storms are not rooted in the boundary layer. They need to get down here in the lowest 1 kilometer to really tap into what's going on at the surface. And they're starting here at a kilometer up, so they just don't have much instability to go with. Okay, so that's why this is going to have kind of an elevated squall line appearance. Let's go to 7 o'clock. See how quickly that moves off to the east. Again, we'll sample the atmosphere ahead of the line and see what it looks like, see if anything's changed. Still got a monster cap, 55 over 55, so the dew points have come up a little bit. Still got good shear. The SIN, in other words, the measurement of the cap strength, anything over 50 is considered basically a cap. Right around 50 is a weak cap. Anything less than like a minus 50. So in other words, you go like minus 25. That's a such weak of a cap you can easily break it. But when you're in the minus 300s and minus 400, forget about it. So in other words, you can't get anything surface based in this environment. It's all elevated. Again, a saving grace when it comes to tornadoes. And the LCLs, lift and condensation level, in other words, how high you could reach up and touch the base of the cloud, they're way up here, man. They're you couldn't even reach them if you wanted to, even in an airplane. That's how high they are. But again, that's a good thing. All right, so let's see. That's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You can see the storm's pretty meaty. See the red on here indicates it will be a rough line of thunderstorms. You have a lot of lightning with it, very heavy rainfall. You will have some pockets of wind with this and pockets of hail, no doubt. It's just right now the tornado threat is very low because of the given conditions. If we look at the period of time as it gets close to Oklahoma City Metro, hasn't changed, same idea, monster cap, 58 over 58. Again, we're getting that moisture working in to the equation. Now let's go to 9 o'clock. All right, so this is where we had the data that said, okay, we finally hit a 60-degree dew point here around the Oklahoma City metro area. So how does the rest of the atmosphere look? A little messy in the hodograph structure. It's not as clean as it was earlier. It still has a marginal tornado risk. It's got 60 over 60. But again, no surface instability. The Cape is only 200. Now, normally we like Cape values around 1,000 or more for severe weather. You can sometimes get away with Cape values down around 500 at the surface as long as shear is ridiculous and there's no other issues. There's no upper level capping inversion, which we do have here. So that's not going to help us out if you want tornadoes. But the shear is through the roof, man. It's off the charts. In other words, storms are just spinning like a top upstairs. But again, bad situation as far as the atmosphere is concerned, as not everything is there in the ingredient list. If you wanted a big outbreak of tornadoes, for example. All right, so 10 o'clock. This line is still pretty strong as it makes its way on the east side of Oklahoma City out towards Shawnee. Same idea, we'll pick a sounding out ahead of it. Now, I will tell you this. Because moisture kind of came in a little bit better at that little hour, remember how I told you there might be just a little bit of strengthening as it kind of rolls into that, we'll call it a theta E axis of additional moisture. The cap was able to be eliminated somewhat. And that happens two reasons. one, you have more moisture, but two, the upper level system that's coming in from New Mexico is working its way into the state. And it does bring colder temperatures with it aloft. And that also helps to cool the capping layer down. So in other words, this layer right here is starting to remove itself. So if I go back an hour, see this big nudge, this red line, or how it comes so far up to the right of this dotted line. Okay, so again, if fold it an hour ahead of time, and look what happens. It erodes. So that's the capping layer eroding. Now, this is not a good sign usually, obviously, because that means that the storms have a chance to become surface-based. So at this point in time, we'll see what happens. The LCLs are still pretty high. It's lift and condensation level. All right, so let's go to the next hour. All right, so then the stronger storms are now 11 o'clock up from Bartlesville to Tulsa, south of there to I-40. Again, I'll pick a spot on the map. We'll see how the sounding looks. Now, at this particular time, nothing really changed. The cap's still barely hanging on. So again, you might have a little bit better potential for some surface-based development of parts of the squall line. So what happens in this case? In this case, because instability is still pretty weak, but the shear is still ridiculous. So what you then have is the potential for, and I'll draw it here on the map, is from, and this is just based off tonight's data. Remember, it could shift a little east-west kind of a deal. I'll use red to outline it. But from what this is, we'll go from here to, at least at this point, so 11 o'clock, we might as well just take it to the east. But in this zone, as these storms go from the west side to the east side, you might have potential for an increased ability to produce a QLCS tornado. Now, that is not a supercell type tornado. That is a leading edge vorticity center that comes along the edges of the squall line. They'll form and then they'll kind of rotate in along the line. We used to not even forecast for these. We used to not even track them on radar. We used to not even warn about them. They are a phenomenon that has always been there, but we couldn't see them because our Doppler radars weren't that good. Then they got better, and then we're like, oh, what's this? And then we're like, well, it's not technically a tornado by the textbook definition, but it is a rotating column of air that's violent and can lead to damage. So there was an internal, brouhaha in the scientific community on what to do about them. And at the end of the day, they said, well, tornado's a tornado. Whether it's made on the leading edge of a line or through the dynamics and physics involved deeper into an actual severe thunderstorm, that's a supercell. So tomato, tomato, and you still get some damage. So there you go. All right. So anyway, so that enhancement may likely continue here in the northeastern Oklahoma during the late night period after midnight. So if I look around the midnight forecast sounding, same thing's still there. We still have a nice hodograph. So our speed and directional shear is still there. And the Cape value, what's that? Minus 104. So the Cape, the cap, not the Cape. So the cap is still barely there. So skin of our teeth is what I'm telling you. From things going okay to really bad. But that's the way the cookie crumbles in this deal. Now, all models pretty much say the same thing. There's not a single model that says Armageddon all the way through. They're all leery of the lack of the deep moisture. They're all leery of the temperatures being a little too cold. So we're going to look at the last one I'm going to show you. This is the experimental run that's supposed to be the future of our new convective models. All right, so we'll show you that the rain has got down the south into Texas, etc. There's that stuff that comes through late afternoon tomorrow. Might have light lightning with it. That's about it. All right, that moves out of here, and then look what here for the panhandle. Look what happens around 6 o'clock. So right there. All right, so it does build up a couple of significant thunderstorms out there at least, and it tries to start to form into a line. All right, and then, so right here, let me go right there. You start to see, put this on here, these little outlines. These are helicity tracks, these little shaded regions. And that means you're probably going to have enough rotation of the storm to produce some hail, damaging wind, and usually if you get things right, a tornado. But you'll notice this is all in the eastern Texas panhandle right here for 6, 7 o'clock into 8 o'clock. Now, this model's a little slower than the one we just looked at. But again, the take home here is that it has the brunt of the heaviest storms on these eastern last 2 counties of Texas into the first counties of Oklahoma. And then once you head into the time frame where they come into Metro, look what happens. They weaken. So let me go back. See, very strong, a little weaker, a lot weaker. All right, so that's a different trend than what we looked at the other model we were looking at, which is our standard cam model to beat in this environment. So the bottom line is with this, because it probably has the cap holding on and not weakening as much as the other one does, that means this line of storms runs into that, and it just keeps slowly weakening with time. So honestly, which way could it go? It could go either way. It's too early to say for eastern half of Oklahoma as to whether or not it does this and slowly dies out, which is what our latest and greatest, brightest minds have put together in this model physics package. Or do we get enough instability from low-level moisture that comes in to hang on just a little while longer to give a little bit more of a tornado threat with a QLCS type situation? If we look at the significant tornado parameter, in other words, the best ingredients for the strongest tornadoes, you will see that this model favors the eastern Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma briefly, just for a couple of hours, and then it's never the same since then. So what's the take home on all this? We're going to get some storms, and we're going to get some good rain. Matter of fact, some of these spots, it's easily half an inch to maybe an inch hit and miss across the state. We get some nice heavy downpours of those storms, but usually a squall line is more uniform than this. So you'll get some really good stuff out of the atmosphere on this still. Temperature-wise, again, cold, 40s for Saturday. Then should be in the 60s on Sunday. How warm we get is still debatable, and this temperature here, for example, may not even happen until we head into the evening hours versus, say, during our normal period, which is during the heat of the day. And then Monday and Tuesday, it's looking pretty good. We'll get a little bit of a cool down after that, but otherwise, temperatures really, you can't complain too much about it. All right, so that's everything that there is when it comes to the science behind all of it. So yeah, I am not deep state, just so you know. And my wife and I visited a distillery, Moonshine, in case you can read the hat. It was fun on our trip to South Carolina to see my brother, and we said, let's go to a legit, for real moonshine place. And that's the name of it, and they've been around since the dawn of time. So they got some old war stories that they can tell you. Whether or not they're all true, who knows. But the stuff they made, man, whew, it was smooth. It is not like Oklahoma moonshine, just so you know. And they said, look, you're not supposed to be able to taste it. And that's the issue. I'm like, oh. So if you get what you're talking about and that Oklahoma stuff, that's dirty moonshine. If you want the good, distilled, clean stuff, have a little bit of this. So we tried it, and we didn't mind it. They have flavors you can add to it. You have flavors to add to anything now. Anyway, so that's the whole sidetrack that I got on. But so, bottom line, I don't know why I did all that. So bottom line is, if you're late, you missed out all this, the fun stuff. We do all the science behind what's going to happen, the reasons why. As of today, the best guess at how things are going to play out is we've got the cold air in place, right? Today and yesterday. Well, that's going to be hard to erode and get out of here in time for this storm system to move in. If we did not have this cold air in place at all, this wouldn't even be in question. There would be a nice, potent, severe weather outbreak with probably lots of hail, damaging wind, and yes, probably lots of tornadoes and some strong tornadoes, maybe even violent tornadoes. If this was May and April, that's what we would have for the outcome. But it's not May or April, and we also do have this cold, more stable atmosphere that we're dealing with right now. So the big key, big question, the big $1,000,000 question is that the models are having a tough time with is are we able to modify and mix out this colder, drier, more stable air and replace it with warm, unstable air? And right now, the best model that we can use says no, it's not going to happen. It's going to stay more stable, cooler, a little drier, and that's going to save the day. Some of the other models that aren't really good at what they do when it comes to this are going Armageddon still, with some really decent thunderstorms. Now the shear is in place, so in other words, the shear is off the charts. So if we were to able to do that, and with the shear present in the atmosphere, yeah, it would be a bad outcome. So luckily, fingers crossed, what we have out there kind of hangs in there, and we don't really get to moderate stuff too much over the latter part of the weekend, and that will be good for us. So the potential is there, but right now in the data, it should not be realized. So knock on wood, go find some wood, everybody. And then I'll watch it over the weekends. I'll do the forecast obviously on Saturday, so it'll be in the evening hours again. We'll look at the latest data, so probably about this time around 9:30. And then on Sunday, I'll do another broadcast sometime, maybe lunch, I'm not sure, whenever. Could be late morning, just depending on how things go. And then if there are going to be tornadoes, Sunday evening, then I would cover those live here at AT's Weather social media operation on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Facebook. And then we'll cover those. Let me think. Anything else? That was kind of the gist, which is what you guys are here for. Angela. No, believe it or not, this moonshine was not harsh. It actually was pretty smooth. Now, that's me. Jody was lightweight. She was like, making faces and all that stuff. And I was just like, actually, I've had way worse. So this was actually pretty good. And you could sip it. It was a nice little sipping deal. She's funny. Obviously, she's got some different opinions, but that's okay. Who's late to the party? Dylan. Dude. What in the world, man? Listen, I just finished, so I got to sign off because I got more work to do, believe it or not. My wife and I are realtors, and so we're doing some other work behind the scenes on that deal. We got some houses to show. Someone's wanting to buy a house tomorrow, so we're going to go take them around town, and I got some more things I got to do for that. And also, we have our morning show at 9 o'clock in the morning, Team Tuttle Realty, if you want to look us up on Facebook. And we do is coffee talk. So basically, we sit back, we have a little drink of a cup of joe, and you guys sit back and join us. We can chit-chat a little bit, and we'll talk about the latest market trends, see what's happening there, and then our topic of the day. So we always have a topic of the day when we do those shows. It's every Saturday morning, as long as we're either not busy or in town or have other commitments. But so far, it's most Saturdays here that we start out at the beginning of the year. And so we're having some fun with that. And then we'll also interview some industry insiders where we get to ask them, everything about the deal. Like, for example, we had Jamie Ferguson on from Ferguson Roof Systems. So we talked about the roofing industry, what you need to watch out for, what are the red flags, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, we had our lender on, Jim Foster. So if you everything about mortgages and rates and all these crazy terms you hear about when you're trying to finance for a home. And so talking about that and rent versus own, did all that. We're going to have several more in the pipeline. So it's kind of, if you're interested in all that, we try to make sure you have plenty of value in there so you don't waste your time. Although you're half awake with your coffee, so are we. So hang in there. I think we did in our pajamas one time. Just because. Why not? All right, so listen, that's it for me. I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a great rest of your night, and some of you will see me tomorrow, and others will see me on Sunday. And hopefully none of you see me Sunday night. Nobody wants to see this Sunday night because that usually means tornadoes, all right? Okay, you guys be good. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Take care.